Zek'thara had made a career out of breaking minds. As the premier psychic interrogator of the Valdorian Empire, his chitinous form had loomed over countless prisoners, his 6 eyes boring into their consciousness while his mind tendrils extracted every secret, every fear, every shameful memory. Lesser species crumbled before his mental assault within minutes. Even the proud Altarians, with their telepathic defenses, rarely lasted more than an hour. So when the Galactic Academy assigned him a human student for cultural exchange and mentorship, Zek'thara saw it as an insult. Humans were barely spacefaring, a primitive species that had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. They had no psychic abilities, no mental defenses worth mentioning. What could he possibly learn from mentoring such a creature? The human arrived on a Tuesday. Marcus Chun, according to his file, 22 Earth years old, studying xenopsychology with a focus on interspecies mental adaptation. Average height for his species at roughly 6 feet, with the typical mammalian features: brown hair, dark eyes, and that peculiar human habit of showing his teeth when greeting others. "Professor Zek'thara," Marcus said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "It's an honor to study under you. I've read all your published papers on cross-species psychological analysis." Zek'thara's mandibles clicked in irritation. The human's mind was completely open, unguarded. Zek'thara could sense his surface thoughts as clearly as if Marcus were speaking them aloud. Nervousness about making a good impression, excitement about the opportunity, and an underlying current of curiosity? Not fear, as Zek'thara had expected, but genuine intellectual fascination. "Human," Zek'thara's voice resonated through his vocal chambers, the sound designed to instill unease in most species. "Your kind's mental architecture is primitive. I question whether you can comprehend the advanced concepts we study here." Marcus's smile faltered slightly, but his curiosity remained. "I understand I have a lot to learn, sir. That's why I'm here." Pathetic, Zek'thara thought. No defensive instincts whatsoever. "Very well. We begin immediately. Sit." Zek'thara gestured to a chair with one of his 4 arms. "I will demonstrate the fundamentals of psychic probing. Do not resist. Your species lacks the capability regardless." Marcus settled into the chair, his posture relaxed despite the obvious tension in the room. Zek'thara positioned himself across from the human, his mind tendrils beginning to glow with pale blue energy. This would be a simple demonstration, a light surface scan to show the human how easily his thoughts could be read. Zek'thara extended his consciousness toward Marcus's mind, and stopped. The human's mental landscape was wrong. Not in the sense of being damaged or alien. Zek'thara had probed dozens of species, each with their unique neurological patterns. This was something else entirely, where other minds presented themselves as structured spaces, rooms, forests, geometric patterns. Marcus's consciousness appeared as a vast, shifting expanse. Not chaotic, but fluid, dynamic, as if his thoughts existed in a state of constant motion and transformation. Curious, Zek'thara mused, pressing deeper. Immediately, he encountered something unprecedented. The human's memories weren't simply stored experiences. They were alive, constantly being rewritten and recontextualized. Past events shifted and changed as Marcus's understanding evolved. A childhood memory of his father teaching him to ride a bicycle existed simultaneously as a moment of frustration, triumph, bonding, and metaphor for life's challenges. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was the dreams. Every sentient species dreamed, but their dream states were typically chaotic fragments, random neural firing, memory consolidation, basic problem-solving scenarios. Zek'thara had observed thousands of sleeping minds across dozens of species. Dreams were universally simplistic, illogical, and easily dismissed. Human dreams were cathedrals. As Zek'thara delved deeper into Marcus's unconscious mind, he found himself standing in an impossible space. The ground beneath his mental projection shifted between stone, cloud, and crystalline light. Above him, a sky cycled through colors that had no names, while structures that defied physics rose and fell in perpetual construction and decay. This was just the entry point, Beyond it stretched realm after realm of dream architecture so complex that Zek'thara's analytical mind struggled to process it all. Cities that existed in 11 dimensions. Oceans of liquid music where memories swam as luminescent fish. Mountains that were simultaneously mathematical equations and emotional symphonies. And these weren't random neural misfirings. They were organized, purposeful. The human subconscious mind had built entire universes where impossible problems were solved, where creativity and logic merged into something transcendent. This cannot be normal for the species, Zek'thara thought. This individual must be an anomaly. He withdrew from the probe abruptly, his mind tendrils recoiling as if burned. Marcus blinked, looking concerned. "Is everything all right, Professor? You look disturbed." "Your dream states," Zek'thara said carefully, "are they always so elaborate?" "Elaborate?" Marcus tilted his head. "I mean, I guess I have pretty vivid dreams." "Why? Describe them to me." Marcus scratched his chin, considering. "Well, last night I dreamed I was exploring this huge library where each book contained an entire world. I could open one and step inside, live out a whole story, then step back out and try another book. Sometimes the stories would bleed into each other, and I'd have to solve problems that required knowledge from multiple worlds." Zek'thara's 6 eyes widened. "And you consider this normal?" "Pretty much, yeah. Though sometimes they're simpler. Like the recurring one where I'm flying through storm clouds that are actually made of mathematical equations, and I have to solve them to navigate safely to—" Marcus stopped, noticing Zek'thara's expression. "Is that not normal?" Instead of answering, Zek'thara pulled up his personal communicator and sent a priority message to the Academy's Xenobiology department. "Need immediate consultation on human neurological baselines. Urgent." The response came back within minutes. "Human dream complexity is well documented. Suggest reviewing Chun, Dr. Sarah, Oniric Architecture in Homo sapiens, Galactic Journal of Comparative Psychology, Volume 847. Zek'thara's mandibles clicked rapidly as he accessed the paper. Dr. Sarah Chun, the human sister, apparently had written extensively about human dream states. According to her research, what Marcus had described wasn't abnormal for humans. It was typical. Every human, from childhood onward, constructed vast dream realms nightly. They solved problems that would challenge the greatest minds of other species. They created art, composed music, invented technologies, and explored philosophical concepts that their waking minds couldn't fully grasp, all while unconscious, and they dismissed it as just dreaming. "Tomorrow," Zek'thara announced, his voice carrying an edge that made several nearby students look up from their studies, "we will conduct a practical examination of mental resilience." Marcus nodded eagerly. They were in the Academy's psychic training facility, surrounded by the soft hum of neural dampening fields and the crystalline walls that amplified telepathic abilities. Other students, a mix of Altarians, Valdorians, and Nexari, worked in pairs, practicing basic mental defenses and offensive techniques. "What kind of test?" Marcus asked. "A standard intimidation protocol," Zek'thara explained, though nothing about what he planned was standard. Over the past week, he'd been studying human psychological profiles, and what he'd learned disturbed him. "I will attempt to break down your mental defenses through fear induction and psychological pressure. The goal is to measure your species' capacity for mental resistance." What Zek'thara didn't mention was that he'd already decided to fail Marcus spectacularly. The human's dreams might be impressive, but they were just dreams. In a real psychic confrontation, facing genuine mental assault, the primitive human mind would crumble. Then Zek'thara could write his report, recommend against further human integration into advanced psychic studies, and return to more worthy subjects. "Should I prepare in any particular way?" Marcus asked. "There is no preparation for what I will show you," Zek'thara replied. "Sit, close your eyes. Try to maintain consciousness as long as possible." Marcus settled into the testing chair, his breathing steady and relaxed. Still no sign of the defensive instincts that even herbivorous species possessed. Zek'thara almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Zek'thara began with standard intimidation, projecting images of his most fearsome interrogations, the screaming terror of broken minds, the cold certainty of inevitable defeat. He amplified Marcus's natural fears, drawing out ancestral memories of being hunted by predators, the primal terror of being alone in the dark. Marcus's breathing quickened, but he remained conscious. Zek'thara escalated. He projected the heat death of the universe, the meaninglessness of existence, the futility of all human endeavor in the face of cosmic indifference. He showed Marcus every way he could die, every way his loved ones could suffer, every possible future where humanity failed and was forgotten. Marcus was sweating now, his hands gripping the chair arms, but his eyes remained closed and focused. Impressive resilience for a primitive species, Zek'thara admitted to himself, then prepared his final assault. This was a technique he'd used only on the most dangerous prisoners, a complete dissolution of self-identity, making the target forget who they were, what they valued, why existence had any meaning at all. He struck Marcus's mind with the force of a collapsing star, and Marcus struck back. The return blow didn't come from Marcus's conscious mind. It erupted from his dream state, from those impossible cathedral realms of human subconsciousness that Zek'thara had glimpsed days earlier. But now they weren't just architectural marvels. They were weapons. A wave of pure creativity slammed into Zek'thara's analytical consciousness. Stories that rewrote themselves as he tried to understand them. Mathematical poetry that solved emotional equations. Music that painted colors beyond the visible spectrum while composing symphonies of taste and texture. Zek'thara's mind, evolved for order and categorization, reeled under the assault of organized chaos. Every time he tried to impose structure on what he was experiencing, it shifted into something new, something that followed rules he didn't possess the conceptual framework to understand. Then came the dreams themselves. Marcus's sleeping mind opened like a flower, revealing not just his own dream realms but connections to something vast beyond them. Zek'thara found himself pulled into a space where every human who had ever lived continued to dream, their unconscious minds linked in ways that conscious science couldn't explain. He saw the dreams of Marcus's ancestors, a cave painter dreaming of herds that covered continents, a medieval scholar dreaming of flying machines and distant stars, a grandmother in the 20th century dreaming solutions to problems her great-grandchildren would face. He saw the dreams of Marcus's contemporaries, 8 billion human minds creating infinite worlds every night, exploring possibilities that would take other species millennia to contemplate, solving problems by dreaming new ways to think about them. And he saw Marcus's own dreams, which weren't separate from this vast network but were threads in an incomprehensibly complex tapestry. The human's individual consciousness was simultaneously unique and connected, personal yet universal. The realization struck Zek'thara like a physical blow. Humans didn't just dream. They evolved through dreaming. Every night, 8 billion minds explored alternative realities, tested different solutions, imagined new possibilities. Their species advanced not just through conscious effort but through unconscious collaboration on a scale that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen. And they did it all without realizing what they were doing. Zek'thara's mental defenses, honed through decades of psychic combat, crumbled before this revelation. He found himself sobbing, an involuntary response he hadn't experienced since childhood, as the sheer magnitude of human potential overwhelmed his analytical mind. In the testing chamber, alarms were blaring. Marcus had opened his eyes and was looking at Zek'thara with genuine concern. "Professor, are you okay? Should I call for help?" Zek'thara's mind tendrils were flickering erratically, his 6 eyes unfocused. Around them, other students and instructors were gathering, drawn by the psychic disturbance. I. Zek'thara struggled to speak. "What are you?" Marcus looked confused. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't understand. Did I do something wrong?" "Wrong?" Zek'thara wanted to laugh and scream simultaneously. The human had just demonstrated psychic capabilities that redefined what consciousness could be, and he was apologizing for it. 3 days later, Zek'thara stood before the Academy's High Council, delivering what would become one of the most important reports in galactic history. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice steady despite the revolutionary nature of his findings. I must revise all previous assessments of human mental capabilities. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives from 12 species, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, leaned forward in their respective environmental pods. Counselor Zek'thara, the ancient Nexari whose telepathic abilities were legendary, spoke first. Zek'thara, your reputation for accuracy is well established. However, your preliminary reports about this human student seem exaggerated. With respect, Counselor, they are understated. Zek'thara activated the chamber's holographic display, showing brain scans and psychic resonance patterns. What I initially interpreted as primitive mental architecture is actually the most sophisticated consciousness model in known space. The scans showed Marcus's brain activity during sleep. Where other species displayed simple wave patterns during dream states, human neurological activity resembled a three-dimensional mandala of impossible complexity. Humans don't simply dream, Zek'thara continued. They engage in what can only be described as parallel reality computation. Every night, each human mind explores thousands of alternative scenarios, testing solutions, creating innovations, developing empathy by literally experiencing other perspectives. Counselor Zek'thara of the Altarians, whose species prided itself on telepathic superiority, interjected. If this were true, humans would demonstrate psychic abilities beyond our own. They show no such capabilities. Because they don't recognize what they're doing as psychic ability, Zek'thara replied. They call it intuition, creativity, inspiration. They don't realize that their breakthrough scientific discoveries, their artistic innovations, their moral advances, they're all products of unconscious psychic exploration. He displayed another set of data. Consider their technological advancement curve. Most species require thousands of years to develop from basic tool use to space travel. Humans accomplished it in roughly 10,000 years. Their rate of innovation is exponentially faster than any other known species. Coincidence? Counselor Zek'thara said dismissively. Is it? Zek'thara brought up historical records. Every major human advancement, mathematics, agriculture, medicine, art, shows the same pattern. An individual claims to have discovered or invented something after sleeping on the problem, or having a flash of inspiration. What they're describing is their unconscious mind accessing the collective dream network of their species. The implications hung in the chamber like a storm cloud. You're suggesting, Counselor Zek'thara said slowly, that humans possess a form of species-wide telepathic problem-solving network? I'm stating it as fact, Zek'thara replied. And unlike our telepathic abilities, which require conscious effort and training, theirs operates automatically from birth. Every human is connected to every other human through their dream states. They share knowledge, explore possibilities, and advance their species through unconscious collaboration. He paused, knowing his next words would fundamentally alter galactic civilization's understanding of itself. Counselors, we have been evaluating species advancement based on conscious abilities, technology, telepathy, culture. We assumed that consciousness was the pinnacle of mental evolution. We were wrong. The pinnacle is the integration of conscious and unconscious potential. Humans haven't just achieved this integration, they've built their entire civilization on it. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives debated the implications. If humans were truly as advanced as Zek'thara claimed, it would require a complete reassessment of galactic hierarchy and potential. But Zek'thara wasn't finished. There's more, he said, and the chamber fell silent again. Marcus Chun, the student I've been studying, represents what humans consider average intelligence for their species. If our assessments are correct, then humans, as a whole, may be the most mentally advanced species in the galaxy. And they don't even know it, Counselor Zek'thara murmured. They don't know it, Zek'thara confirmed, which may be the most terrifying aspect of all. They've achieved what our greatest philosophers could only theorize about, and they consider it so mundane that they rarely even remember their dreams. Later that day, Zek'thara found Marcus in the Academy library, reading a text on comparative consciousness theory. The human looked up as his mentor approached. Professor, I wanted to apologize again for whatever happened during the test. I hope I didn't cause any problems. Zek'thara settled his massive form into a nearby chair, studying the young human with new eyes. Marcus, may I ask you something? Of course. When you dream of solving problems, creating new worlds, exploring impossible realities, do you ever consider that those dreams might be more than simple neural activity? Marcus considered this seriously, as he did all questions. Sometimes I wonder, he admitted. Some of my best insights come from dreams, and sometimes it feels like I'm not dreaming alone, like there are other minds there exploring the same spaces. Zek'thara's mandibles clicked softly. What would you say if I told you that feeling was accurate? I'd say that would explain a lot, Marcus replied with characteristic human adaptability. Are you telling me that's what the test measured? Some kind of unconscious psychic ability? I'm telling you, Zek'thara said carefully, that your species may be the most naturally gifted psychic civilization in the galaxy. You just don't realize it because for you, it's as natural as breathing. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing this information with the same calm acceptance he'd shown everything else. Finally, he smiled. Well, he said, I guess that means I have a lot more to learn than I thought. As Zek'thara watched the human return to his studies, he reflected on the greatest irony of all. He had set out to intimidate and break down a primitive student. Instead, he had discovered that the student species possessed abilities that made his own seem rudimentary by comparison. And the human was right, he did have a lot more to learn. They all did.